everybody. So today's video is based on a question that I received from one of my friends whom I met at Cairo, Budapest. Hey Diana! And I wanted to get that answer for her. She had asked me, what does my dance practice schedule and my exercise schedule look like? So I wanted to go over that with you all today. So first off, I wanted to address my dance practice schedule. It really depends day to day on what's going on, but typically I have between 30 minutes and an hour and a half of dance practice time. That doesn't seem like very much per day, especially because this is my profession, but you'll be surprised. And I believe that other business owners feel this way. You're spending most of your time running the business versus actually physically dancing. So you have to get that time in where you can, but obviously make it a priority. So if I don't have 30 minutes to an hour and a half put aside, then what I end up doing is I practice in mini moments through the day, maybe like a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, and I usually practice in my house versus in my studio. So I have a different curriculum, so to speak, for when I can't get in the studio than when I'm actually in the studio. So that being said, you have to use your time pretty effectively. If I only have 30 minutes or an hour and a half or up to an hour and a half to practice whatever I'm working on, it really doesn't leave much time. Granted, if I am working on a specific project, then I dedicate more time. So let's say I have a choreography to do because there's a show coming up and I'm doing a new choreography, then I will definitely allocate more time on the startup process of it because it takes more time to choreograph and fine tune than it is to run through your choreography and fine tune it after it's established. So depending on what projects I have, I may allocate more time, but that does take away from other responsibilities that I have because I want to make sure I prioritize my family as well. So I'm not going to put in more work time, so to speak, even though dancing is my passion. I'm not going to put in more work time and take away my family. I would give a little here so I can take from on this aspect of it. Because I have to use my time a bit more effectively when I'm not in the studio dancing, I study a lot on how to learn effectively, if that makes sense. So I study books about how the brain works or about how your body can be conditioned more quickly. I talk with other professionals or other colleagues or other dancers about that, or you watch YouTube videos, or I watch self-development, self-awareness videos in order to do that. So when I actually go into my dance practice time, I'm not spending the time processing those things. I'm in there straight up working for the 30 minutes or the hour and a half. So that's really, really important. So when I'm in the studio, I focus on the core physical aspects of the dance. And I say physical because there's physical, mental, emotional, contextual, history, all that stuff. So when it's education time for me and I'm not in the studio, then I focus on the other aspects because I may not always be required to move. And if I do need to move, then I can move inside my house or in the studio if I'm studying in here. Well, when I'm in the studio and I am here to physically practice the movement, I have several things that I focus on. So I'm going to look at my notes because I want to make sure I don't forget anything. I focus on my breath, my posture. I also focus on my pelvic floor. I focus on my arms, hands, and torso. And that's specific to me because that's one thing that I find that I'm constantly working on in the physical aspect. And then I have a focus for myself. So the focus could be leading with my hips, dancing on the rhythm, dancing on the melody. How would I dance to this violin? How would I dance to the accordion? And working with those different concepts that I can apply to my physical being. So if you see behind me, I purposely videoed like this so you can see I have notes up there that are from my class, but when I write my notes for myself, I have, where's my stuff? I have my markers and my dry erase marker. I do have a whiteboard as well, but it's a little bit over there, and so sometimes I like to write on my mirror. So I take notes there during my practice time so I can be reminded during my practice, if I glance at the notes, that those are the things that I'm working on so I don't forget. So in the middle of it, if I see, oh, breath, I'm like, okay, make sure I'm breathing. Face is another thing that I work on to make sure I look relaxed and I'm enjoying the dance because that's a huge part of Middle Eastern dancing, right, is enjoying it. And so I just make my notes right there behind me. And then as I'm dancing, I focus on what I've written, my focus of the month, like I said, leading with the hips, stuff like that. And then I videotape alongside that. So I have multiple ways of keeping myself accountable. So Diana also asked me about my exercise schedule. So in the schedule of my day, I plan it very closely to my dance time because I will warm up, I'm able to stretch, I'm able to condition my body around that time. And so that way I have this longer stretch of time in my day to be physically active. I find it harder on my body, particularly if I exercise in the morning and then I don't dance at night, because then I've been sitting all day or doing whatever all day and I haven't had the time to warm up necessarily the way I would want to, as if I were to exercise first, be all warmed up, my muscles are really loose so I can move them in the way that I would move best, more optimally, and then dance afterwards. So I do weightlifting, looking at my notes again. I do weightlifting, I do running, and my running is it's like a light jog. I would not consider myself a runner at all, but I like to jog. It helps clear my mind, and even during the exercise, it helps clear my mind for my dance practice. So I typically dance or exercise first, and then I will go into my dance practice. So I'm able to get my thoughts out. It's another way I meditate instead of just journaling, because I journal, but it's another way for me to clear my mind and get in the game and be like, okay, when I get into the studio, this is what I would like to accomplish today. So it's my goal setting, clearing my mind portion of my day. So I like to do light jogging, weightlifting. I also like to do conditioning exercises that are really beneficial for rock sharky. So any unilateral exercises for the hips and balance is really good, like unilateral squats, because you may find that one half of your body is more stable than the other. So I work on that. I work on balance exercises. I work on strengthening my hips, strengthening my back, strengthening my core, strengthening my legs, so that way I can do level changes, that I make sure that as I'm doing these conditioning exercises, they are somewhat reflective of the movement that I will do when I dance rock sharky. So if I do like a weighted hip circle, or a lowered hip circle, and I'm coming down like this, if you notice, this is very reminiscent of actually doing a squat bag. So those are one of the exercises I would do in order to make sure that when I'm dancing, I have proper form so I don't injure myself. So like I said, I like to plan it out to where my exercise and my stretching time is right before I dance, and then I go into it. It is not inclusive of the 30 minutes to the hour and a half that I have. I set aside about 30 to 45 minutes to exercise per day, including the exercise and the stretching time. And later on in the day, I will also schedule like a 15-minute break so I can stretch, because as your own business owner, you spend a lot of time sitting, and I don't have a standing desk, and I love to sit, and I like to put my legs in weird positions, like I'll sit like this and then one leg is up here, which is not necessarily always good for your hips. So I have to, kind of work my body back into the position it's supposed to be in. So this is pretty much how I schedule my day in order to train and keep up my skill. And the other thing that is really important, I feel that every dancer should do, no matter how experienced you are, master instructor, or just beginning, all of us have to practice our foundational movement and the basics, going back to that, because that is the basis of everything. So I account for that during my practice time. So if I have 30 minutes, I may do basic foundational movements for, let's say, 10 minutes of that, in order to make sure that I get that drilling in, because that's really important to me. And I find that when I don't do that, my complex movement becomes sloppy. So if I have an hour and a half, maybe I'll dedicate 30 minutes. So it's about a third of the time that I dedicate to it. And I feel that's also a great warm-up. And it's a way to identify any challenges your body may be facing that day and to accommodate those. So I highly recommend that when you are scheduling, keep in mind that you want to be doing those foundational movements. I feel that's super important. And I already have set up my video camera placement. All that stuff's already done. So when I get in, I literally turn on the music, turn on my sound system, press record, and then I go. So I'm not messing around with my dance time. So that's really important when you schedule, is to make sure that you're accounting for all the time you're actually spending on dancing and all the time you're actually spending on setting up. So as much as you can set up ahead of time or have it permanently placed, that will serve you really, really well. Thank you so much for the question. I really appreciate it. I would love to hear from more of you about what you want to see, questions you want to have, and dialogues you want to have. This is really helpful for many of us, because I know from personally speaking, sometimes you feel alone when you don't have these random daily questions answered, and sometimes you just don't feel like posting about it, and waiting for all these responses. Sometimes you just want to Google research and just see what other people are doing, you know what I mean? So thank you so much for the question, really appreciate it. Then thank you so much for watching, really appreciate that too. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so below. And as you know, I teach online dance classes, so feel free to check out the link in the description below and join me sometime. Woo! Hope you have a fabulous day and happy dancing!